And we are actually live.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
Welcome to the Lost Dollar Business Club, where we talk about business, and not just business. We talk about what makes businesses go up and what makes businesses go down. If you're interested in businesses, this is where it is. We talk about the global economy. We talk about global politics. We talk about everything and anything business related that affects your life on a global scale as well as a local scale. And don't miss after the show, Lost and Found.
And we're back.
Where is?
Right.
Everybody had a good Thanksgiving, hopefully. Since we weren't here last week, we couldn't make any turkey jokes. But
that's right.
Well, you can always make them now, Stephen. They'll be
we have a guest today. And I can't say that I had my annual come as your favorite new pilgrim party because he could get offended. So I don't want to say that. And remember, we do have Jeb Bush, and I'm very excited about this. So,
or Bennett Sandlin.
Either way, listen, he looks like Jeb Bush to me. So if I call him Jeb during the show, it is what it is. But we do have a guest today we're very excited about. And hopefully he's seen the show, so he knows we're going to bust his chops just a little bit. But the show today is something that's near and near to Michael's heart. And after our guest, which we're thanking him ahead of time for being here, we will do Lost and Found. David's not here today, so we have some extra stories that should make you chuckle at least. And that's it. So we want to introduce our guest, and then we'll bring him in and we'll have a renaissance, apparently.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we'll be talking about the Wall Street Journal had an article not too long ago over the summer about rural towns and how they're aging, cash-strapped, and in desperate need of workers. And Bennett, our guest today, had some good things to say about it and actually has some possible solutions for it as well, at least from the Texas Municipal League standpoint. So I invited him onto the show to talk a little bit more about it. So let's bring him
yes. Really?
That's right. That's right.
Bennett, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Bennett's going to be serious. And so Michael and Bennett are going to be very serious. And then there's John and I. So this will be a good show. So Michael, we're going to let you start.
For the course, Stephen and John, thank you for joining. Good to see you, Bennett. And good to meet you in person. So yeah, we that article came out this summer, and it's an issue that has been around for quite some time in the sense that, just give us a little framework for one, who you are, Bennett, and how you got into the Texas Municipal League, and then tell us a little bit about the league itself.
Sure. My name is Bennett Sandlin. I'm the executive director of the Texas Municipal League. We're a 112-year-old organization of Texas cities. Got 1,176 cities in Texas that we represent. And we're basically their advocate at the state and federal capitals and help them with all their various issues. And many hundreds of our cities are actually rural. When you think of Texas cities, you might think of Houston, Dallas, and Austin, but many hundreds of them are small. Over 70% of our membership is under 10,000 population cities. And so we deal a lot with rural Texas, rural cities, rural towns, and trying to help them find resources. And right now, there is a big shortage of professional department head folks that can run these cities, particularly in the finance arena. And cities are lacking talent to kind of keep the lights on and keep serving their citizens.
Now, how did the Wall Street Journal come to this topic? Because we on the Lost Dollar Business Club certainly watch and read the Wall Street Journal quite a bit. I was pretty impressed that they even catered to this topic and thought to bring it to the forefront.
I think what got their attention, I'm not 100% sure what did, but what I recall is they were interested in a new program we're starting at the Texas Municipal League, where we're going to help cities with their finance officer duties, hopefully remotely. There's a trend, not just in government, but in small nonprofits and small corporations to share finance officers. They call them remote fractional finance officers. You've probably heard of that. So if you can't have one of your own out in rural Muleshoe, Texas, we're going to try to help you share that with maybe a dozen other cities. And so instead of having to track somebody to come move out to rural Texas, we can help you locally from Austin. Be your finance officer, be your department head. We think there's opportunity for cities to join together in Texas and share some of those department head duties given that it's very hard to attract folks to move from urban areas out to the rural areas. It's kind of happening in the other direction. And that's not just in Texas. That's
That's
nationwide.
right. Yeah,
Well,
that's right.
if somebody has a finance background that's watching this and they're in like the Northeast, let's say like New York or something like that, and they're like, hey, I've got nothing to do. I don't mean that in a bad way, because they've worked 30 years, but they don't want to retire yet. But, they put out the pasture and they still have brain power. Then how would they then get in touch with you, or how do they get in touch with one of these cities and go, I could be your, director of finance or your chief financial officer or whatever. What are you looking for then when you start looking for finance talent for the rural cities? What are they looking for?
What we're attracting so far in this area is basically recently retired finance officers for larger and medium-sized cities that are not
Okay.
ready to hang up their spurs completely. It's the trend. People don't want to just retire. They want to keep their toe in the action. And so we're looking for folks that want to work remotely, that want to work for multiple cities at once. And that's who we're attracting right now, is basically recently retired city finance officials.
Tell us
Throughout the
about the
United States, I'm
success of
assuming.
it. Go ahead, Steve.
I don't
I
know
was just
about all
gonna
the
say
United
yes.
States. We haven't had anybody from outside Texas reach out. Texas has some specific city finance laws. I don't know how hard it
Right.
would be to get up to speed on those, but
Hmm.
we would not be opposed to that for sure.
Okay.
I'm curious about the success of it so far. So how long has it been around, this program, and how's it looking so far?
We have just launched it. It's been around about 6 months.
Yep.
We're only basically consulting with small cities at this point. We don't have our first customer yet to be your actual remote finance officer, but it's catching some interest among our membership. We've had over a dozen what we call finance boot camps, where we send finance officers out to your city to help you get your books in order, help you get ready for an audit. And we're looking for that ideal first customer to be our first remote finance officer per se. We expect that any day now, but at this point, we're doing what we call boot camps, which is more of a consulting function, and it's very popular so far.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I guess from the cities that are talking to you, how long have they been lacking a finance director in general? Is it are they being years without one, or is it a sort of relatively short term recent phenomena?
In some cases, it's been years. The city that kind of got my attention about a year and a half ago was a small rural Texas city out in West Texas that had plenty of money. It's not a function of they're poor; they don't have the resources, but they haven't been able to locate somebody to keep their books for them, and as a result, they hadn't had the required yearly audit in over 4 years. So their books have gone unaudited. It's not for want of trying. I mean, like I said, they got the money, but they just literally cannot attract somebody that's willing to move from an urban area out to a rural area to be their finance officer.
Yeah.
And that's what caught my attention. And this is a phenomenon not just in the finance area, in other areas as well, HR, IT. I don't want to sound like a curmudgeon, and y'all joke that I look like Jeb Bush, but I am of a certain age where, my generation, especially in city government, you might move around. You might start your career in Muleshoe, Texas, and move to Dimebox, Texas, move to Amarillo, and then work your way up. It seems like younger folks these days that are getting their MPAs or going to university want to stay in Austin or stay in Houston. And there's not really that movement around and up like there used to be. And that's part of the problem. People want to just stay in an urban area and continue to work for a larger city. So it's kind of a growing trend, and it's probably a function of more two-income households where it's harder to move around and sort of earn your chops at smaller towns. But we're having a lot of small cities, and again, it's not a financial issue. It's they literally cannot locate a CPA or other qualified person that's gonna move out there and work for them.
But when you talk about financial, then, so we won't mention this city that hasn't had anybody for 4 years. But when you say it's not financial, I guess in my mind maybe it is financial, because if I'm living, say, in Austin or Dallas or Houston, you're going to pay me $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year because of X. If I'm living in a little town, they may be paying me 80 to 150,000 a year. So that does become a financial matter if you want to do things, or unless you are like Michael, who wants to live, in the middle of nowhere, which is beautiful. and you're okay with that, right? And it's like, I'm going to raise my family. It's going to be great. We go to the outhouse because the indoor plumbing hasn't gotten there yet. We go down to the stream to wash the dishes.
Right.
And I'm joking, but it's a little different, I think, salary wise. And am I right, or is the salary then comparable to a Dallas or an Austin?
No, it is.
Or how is
I
that?
say it's not a money thing. I mean, there would
Okay.
be a price at which you could locate a finance officer, and it's beginning at about $120,000 in Texas. So you've got a small town
Okay.
that's probably not even paying their city manager that. They're just
Wow.
not going to be able to afford to bring somebody out to be that finance officer. Anything close, anything up below that.
So the remote thing then works very well, because then not only can whoever work for just say that, but 3 other cities, and they can work for them, whether it's part-time or full-time. And the full-time person just says lives in Dallas. They don't have to leave Dallas. They can work for, if you will, 80,000 a year. And it's not really they're okay because they don't have to do anything. They've already got their roots there, and they're retired, but they still have money to, for their scotch and cigars, so to speak. And then if they work for a few cities, I'm assuming you're billing it out on an hourly. So they just, as much as they work as they make.
That's right. And it may not be a
Okay.
full-time job for each of those cities. So
Right.
if one person can handle 6 or 8 of my member cities, those cities are happy. They have somebody keeping their books. That person can live wherever they want to live. And so TML, our league, is just going to be the conduit for that idea. And we've got some interest. We just haven't finalized it with the first city yet. But I anticipate it'll be any week now.
That's cool. Oh, I like this concept though, because the city that hasn't had an audit in 4 years, that's going to be a 100-hour-a-week job for a while. Like, you got to clean up stuff, right? Whoever's going to come in is going to start from the last audit and start cleaning things up. So that's going to take a little bit. But once they get everything up to snuff, then realistically, whether it's 5 hours or 20 hours a week, it's just a matter of just keeping things up and running. And since everything in today's world pretty much remote, it wouldn't be that difficult once they start setting things up, because I don't think it's that expensive to set up remote accounting or setting up whatever they need internally to have somebody externally watch it.
That's right. And there's software now that cloud-based software that cities use. It's not cheap, but it's fairly standardized. And as long as you have credentials to log into it, you don't really need to be at City Hall. You could be across the state as long as you have the credentials and access to the books and the finances. So this job can be done anywhere. Now, I don't think you can expand this to say a police officer. You can't be a remote police officer or dog catcher. But there's a lot of things that cities do that I think can be done remotely, and just as important, fractionally, meaning it's not necessarily a full-time job, and therefore you could share one staffer across cities in a region.
I like that's very cool. They're catching up to the 22nd century. Right? I think about it, like everybody's remote or hybrid or whatever it is, and cities are, and especially to your point, a smaller city now can basically be like corporate America and have some sort of a hybrid or remote setting, and get people to come in and do it with not having to uproot the whole family, if you will, or
That's our
to your
plan.
point, have a 2-income family. Yeah, I like that. It's very cool.
Did you, when you first identified this as a challenge a year and a half ago, I mean, did you see any analogs for this in other municipal organizations across the country? Are there any other programs that are similar to this that helped inspire this?
Yes, there is. North Carolina is doing something related, and they are taking one of those pieces of software that I said that's kind of a common municipal finance software, and using some state grant money, helping to install that in various member cities. And that gave me the idea. That's not really what we're looking to do in Texas, but that prompted me to think about this idea and inspired me. I'm also seeing in the nonprofit world, there's a lot of other nonprofit groups in Austin that represent, you name it, chiropractors, doctors, realtors.
Yep.
And there is a real shortage among all of us nonprofits of qualified CPAs, finance officers. It's not just a municipal government issue. It's all across the industry. And so I was already experiencing that as the head of a nonprofit. As I began to identify that for my member cities, I said, we've got to do something about this, because it's not for a lack of wanting to be transparent. It's not these cities are dodging their audits, and there's not necessarily anything wrong. They just literally don't have anybody to keep books that can be audited because they can't locate that staffer.
And how do you think, in terms of the pipeline from urban areas to rural areas? I mean, it seems like for at least in the 2020 census data, it looked like rural populations were declining. It seems like post-COVID, rural populations have had a little bit of a bump. I'm part of that, having moved to a rural area from Brooklyn, New York, during COVID. But in terms of creating that connection between the urban and the rural areas, I mean, is that something under the purview of the TML, and any conversations you've had about saying, well, maybe there is a population of urban dwellers who would be interested in living in rural areas?
I don't think you're going to see that in Texas. Even during COVID, you didn't see a lot of folks relocating to rural areas. Now, Texas is grabbing a lot of, I guess you call it immigrants from California and other states, but almost uniformly they're moving to the large urban areas.
Mm.
There's just not a movement, particularly among young people, from the urban areas in Texas to the rural. 74% of Texans live in incorporated cities, and that number is growing. And so, we joke that Texas is a urban state that pretends it's a rural state because of, you picture Texans living out on the ranch and the farm, and it's just not the case. Those small towns are shriveling in terms of their population.
Yeah.
Young people come to college and they want to stay in the city that they went to school in or another large city. And that divide is really hurting our cities. And it's not just finance officers. You're having trouble finding city managers. And the pay can be pretty lucrative, but nobody wants to move from an urban to a rural area these days. I've heard about your phenomenon. During the pandemic, you could work remotely and rurally. We just didn't see a ton of that in Texas.
Yep.
And what little there was seems to have gone away. Everybody's back wanting to be in the big city at this point.
Right.
So do you find that I'm thinking of each city, and there's a sort of a diameter, or let's just say 100 miles from the center of town. Are those towns that are relatively close by and relatively commutable, are they also in sort of this staffing crisis of not finding people, or
Not
is
as much. Not as
yeah.
much. If you're a kind of a suburban area around Dallas or Fort Worth or Houston or Austin, that's one big job market, and you'll see people living in the city and commuting to the suburbs, or vice versa. This is more of a phenomenon of more rural-based cities, which are still hundreds in number, 30, 40, 50 miles from a large urban area, and they're the ones that are really suffering finding folks willing to move there.
It's the remote. So if no one's been say a finance manager for a city, or even a city manager, and somebody says, "Hey, I'll do it," and they have to learn it. Do the cities want that, or do the cities want someone to come in that says, "Oh, you've already been a city manager"? Since you said Texas has different finance laws, and I'm assuming, as everything in every industry, there's always some little quirk you have to learn anyway. So I'm not sure how hard it is or isn't, but could they come in and learn it and say, okay, I'm here? Or do they want someone that could, like, day one come in and go boom, 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 boom? Because at the end of the day, debit and credits are the same. The city doesn't have any kind of different accounting than, it's GAAP, right? So it's not that hard. It's just whatever the nuances of the Texas law. So if CPA's watching this, like I said, in the Northeast, they're like, I could do it. I could learn the law. Is that something that somebody would consider, or they have to have 50 years of city planning or whatever it might be?
No, you don't. It doesn't. The specialty to be a city finance officer is not that huge a hurdle. In fact, in this preliminary consulting piece that we're doing, a number of our clients of what we're calling these boot camps are cities that have a new finance officer, but they may have been the local finance officer at the bank.
Gotcha.
And our job is just to teach them what it means to be a city finance officer. And if you're already a CPA, learning how to be a city finance officer, I wouldn't say is more than a couple week endeavor to just kind of have somebody with experience tell you, here's the tricks of the trade, here's the nuances. So to your point, no, you don't have to have been a city finance officer. And indeed, a number of these small towns, to the extent that they can find somebody, are typically people that don't have a city background, and they just need a little bit of spit and polish. They just need somebody to come in and spend a week with them. And we've been successful at that so far. We've been, I would say, at least half a dozen cities where they'd hired somebody, but they didn't come out of the government world. They weren't a school finance officer, city finance officer. And we found that in about 1 to 2 weeks, and then follow up by phone if needed. We can bring those people up to speed pretty easy. Now, city management's a little bit different because it is more specialized. There's not a non-city equivalent. So you have kind of two pipelines of the city management. One is an MPA program out of a university, and that's out of reach for a lot of small towns. And so what a lot of small towns are having to do is train up the fire chief or the police chief or the city secretary or the utility worker to be a city manager. And that's not ideal, but it's happening more and more. It's got to be somebody with some city background. It's very hard to bring somebody in from the private sector and immediately become a city manager, just because you're dealing with things like water taps and sewer treatment plants. And there's not as much overlap there as there would be in the finance side of things.
Well, for you in finance, it sounds almost like a strong controller from a real company.
Yep.
But it almost sounds, but you keep saying CPA. So do they have to be a CPA, or is some like strong controller that you can do 2 + 2 is 26? Texas accounting. Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing, or
CPA is kind of the pie in the sky, but you're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be a CPA. It could be just somebody with experience in finance. It could be a senior accountant. It could be somebody short of a CPA, and just somebody that has a financial background.
So
well, this is good because our show in the Americas, people watch it on Saturday morning. So I'm sure there's a bunch of finance people out there that are no longer, because they've, like you said, they got to a certain age, they got pushed out, that are going to be like, I can do that job. So hopefully they reach out to you and say, hey, I can do that. I was a controller or a finance person, and they can learn the Texas thing.
We're getting tons of interest from recently retired finance officers, folks that are, I think in general, people that retire these days are kind of different than they were 30 years ago. They don't just quit and move out to the farm. They want to kind of stay involved and working on a contract basis for 6 or 8 cities, doing what they used to do, but being able to walk away from it from time to time is really attractive to folks. And so I think we're not going to have any problem with the manpower piece of this. We've just got to find the right first fit, work out some of the kinks. One of the things we're worried about is cybersecurity. Obviously, we don't want to come in remotely and take care of your books only to have you, get hacked or a ransomware deal. And I'm out of a job first city into it. So that's something we're paying very close attention to.
Smart. You had something, John.
Yeah, and I was going to say, what is it that these cities, don't have, or are they that small that it's so difficult to attract people to come, or you consider, moving to some of these towns? Because I'm thinking, you say young people, and I'm wondering, are they okay, we're all of a certain age here, but are they that small-minded that they can't say, hey, look, I can't really afford a really expensive real estate out in Dallas or Houston or Austin, which is totally out of my reach. It's not gonna. Why not consider a small city where you can get a bargain, and you can. I don't know. It seems. It doesn't have to be forever. You could do it 10 years, and you could be very well off. What is it that they're not marketing maybe to younger people or middle-aged people that?
I don't know what it is. It's simply the divide between urban sophistication and perceived rural unsophistication. If you're a young person, I've got a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old myself. They go to University of Texas, Austin, and they grew up in Dallas, for example. It's just not even in the realm of possibility that they're going to move to small rural Texas. They've never lived there. They don't know the culture. It's just a kind of a different world.
Yeah.
And to my earlier point, there was a time when you worked your way up kind of through the hierarchy, and you knew that you'd start in one location and your company or your city would move you to a different one, and you could work your way up to being the finance officer of Austin. Kids, and I don't mean to sound like a curmudgeon, they just don't want to start in a rural place, period. It's not even a dollar cents issue. They live in an urban area, and that's where the action is, and they want to stay there.
Yeah.
They don't want this when the streets roll up at 8 o'clock. They're like 8 o'clock. That's crazy. So they want it at least to 9:30.
Right.
But no, so that's part of the point. Especially look at us, John. The 3 of us all grew up, like, if you will, in New York. And if someone said to us in our 20s, we're going to send you out to nowhere, Texas, You're going to spend 5 years being whatever you're going to be in nowhere, Texas. We would have looked at them like they had three heads. We've been like, where, what, where are we going to move? So, and then as you get older, you're like, hell, it's okay to go and do that, or it's okay to do that. But I can see if you graduate university and you're
Yeah,
just
okay.
doing partying or whatever, I could see where if you're in, some parts of Texas, and people don't know this. I mean, I've driven through, some are flat. It looks like a desert. And that's it. It is not whatchamacallit. It's not like the television, right? There's not stuff going on. So I can understand where someone's going to be like, yeah, no, I don't think so. Plus, all their friends stay wherever they go to university. And so I think it has a lot to do with that too. Like they have to make new friends, and people today don't know how to actually
Right.
do that anymore. So it's not 30 years ago where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to a new city, get a new job, make new friends. It's like I have to do X, Y, and Z.
Wow, but you
Right.
can go wild pig hunting without abandon, and they'll we need that.
Yes, right.
Well, one of the people in the Wall Street Journal article said that regionalization of services in general is just going to increase for these rural areas. Is that what you're seeing? Is that really is that the trend in fact that we're seeing is going to happen, not just for the financial position, but maybe even larger management of more towns that are in a geographic area?
Absolutely. Like I said, there's certain things like police officer, firefighter that you just can't imagine how you could do that remotely, obviously. But so much else that cities do, that has analogs in the private sector. Why not? Why not do it? Why not either join together? I think, why does a small town of 4,000 people need to have a full-time city manager? Why can't there be one city manager for all 6 cities in a 50-mile radius?
Right.
And he or she could just get in the car and manage one city a day a week and then go check on the next one. I think that's the future. I think it makes a lot of sense financially. And it's just a matter of cities getting accustomed to the idea of sharing department heads and sharing professionals with their neighboring cities. I think it's the trend of the future, and we're excited about it. That's why we're launching this finance piece. But like I said, I think why does your web designer have to work just for your city? One web designer could easily handle the website of a dozen Texas cities, so on and so forth.
Right.
So I think it's the trend of the future.
Down in Palm Beach or down in South Florida, there's like Broward County, Palm Beach County, Dade County. What they've ended up doing is like some of them they use, if you will, the sheriff or whatever, the metro, whatever. But the city managers, to your point, there's the county manager, and he literally manages the individual cities for that county. So it's kind of like what you're doing. It's just that he gets I guess they do it as an election. So he gets elected as the county manager, and he'll manage 26 cities in that county.
Right.
And they've been doing that for forever. And that seems to work well, of course, till it doesn't. But to your point, if you're 6 small cities and you have to drive one every day, so to speak, and if you don't have to be there every day because everything can be done remotely and you have to be at a meeting once a month, then I don't see where that would be an issue at all. I mean, that's kind of where we were during the pandemic, and still certain companies, they're still at that point where it's hybrid. It's like you show up 2 days a week, you don't. So it'd be almost the same thing if you're a city manager of 6 cities. I'm assuming if somebody needs you, they call you. It's an emergency. But if it's not an emergency, I'm assuming your day to day is pretty much A through Z with not a lot of like, a UFO landed on the park. What do we do? It's more of like we have a problem with the sewer. We have a problem with this budget, and kind of done. So it seems like it's kind of not to say that it's not exciting, but it's kind of an A through Z thing on a daily basis where you can kind of manage more than one.
I totally agree. The only difference between the finance piece and, say, city manager or utility worker is you probably can't be remote in those areas. You couldn't live in Austin and be the utility manager for Muleshoe, Texas. You need to be somewhere in the region. So I think you could do that regionally. But things like finance officer, why do you even have to be 100 miles from the city? You could do that from your desk in Austin. And in fact, one of the things we're experiencing is why should 1,000 cities do their finances differently? Why should there be 1,000 different account codes? Those things need to be streamlined and standardized. Small towns don't need to reinvent the wheel on this stuff. It wastes time and resources. Do it all the same way. I'm not saying a small town would do it the same way Austin would do it, but 2 small towns could have identical account codes, and so it's easy to figure out. Let's not reinvent the wheel every time a small city needs to have a CPA running their finances.
Yeah, makes
So,
total sense.
and so when you go to like the state and you go to the Capitol and talk to the senators for the different municipalities, are you guys trying to get it that it's a uniform code then for all the cities? Or is it something that each city is like, no, we're special. We ride a bus. We need to have, we need to have our special code because God forbid, type of
Well,
thing.
that's a good question. Actually, as an association that sort of advocates for cities, we would fight against mandatory uniform codes, charts of accounts. I'm just telling you, I'm just saying between you and I and between cities, if we were going to do this for cities, we would probably insist internally that everybody uses the same chart of accounts. So at the same time that we'd be fighting against the state mandate, it would be a condition of us doing this. There's no reason to do it differently in hundreds of Texas cities.
Yeah, right. It's funny. It's like, we're going to definitely know because we're the organization, but behind closed doors, no, please, can we all get on the same page? I like that. That's great. Welcome to government, everybody. Government 101. So it's perfect. Very
Well,
cool.
give us a before we close here for the lost and found. Why don't you give us a thought in terms of your forward-looking view on not just the program but on the Texas Municipal League and what the next 6 to 12 months are going to look like for you and your advocacy.
Well, Texas is an increasingly urban state, and we're fighting against, like I said earlier, the mythos that we're rural state. Oil and gas is important, ranching and farming is important, but all the action is taking place in Texas cities right now. And so our big challenge is to make sure that our legislature understands that business is happening in urban areas in Texas, and we've got to respect that, and we've got to be respectful of local government and realize that those 1,000+ cities are all different. They function differently. They need to be, you can't treat a city in West Texas like you do Houston. You can't treat Brownsville the same way you would Dallas. Those differences are important, and we've got to get out of the 20th century of thinking of Texas as a rural state. We are truly an urban state, and the sooner we sort of get on board with that, the better off we're going to be as an economy.
Very cool. And then if people want to reach out to you, whether they are a city, and I'm sure the cities know how to do it, or some CPA or controller, or some kid just graduated university, is like, I'm a finance guy, I can do this job and I'll move to wherever. How do they get a hold of you if they want to, throw their hat in the ring?
Just email me. My name's Bennett, BENNETT @tml.org. And we would love to visit with. I'm always looking for young people that want to get involved in city government. There's a lack of them these days, so we put a premium on young people that are willing to do that, and I would love to visit with them.
Very cool. Well,
That's
Bennett,
great.
thank you so much. I don't appreciate my ribbing, if you will, about the Jeb Bush, but you really, when I first saw you, that's the first thing I thought of, and we're all
I've
that
heard it.
age. So
I've heard it
I was gonna say
before.
you've heard it before, yeah. So there you go.
I testified in a committee hearing last year here
Right.
at the Capitol, and the first thing a representative said is, "Anyone ever told you look like Jeb Bush?" And I said, "Yeah, I've heard it."
In fact, Jeb told him the other day at a party. So there you go. As you grow this program, please stay in touch with us. And as you get like a client or 2 or 3 and it grows and you want to come back, we'd love to hear it. I know the people that listen to the show would love to hear it because I'm assuming there's other cities out there that are like, we could do this. That may not be in Texas. So I think it would be very interesting as a follow-up down the road.
Yeah.
Glad to do it. Glad to help.
Yeah, it would be great. It was a pleasure meeting you. Have a wonderful
Thank
day.
you,
And thank you so much.
Okay,
Thanks, guys.
Bennett.
Appreciate it. Enjoyed it.
Thanks.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
All right.
That was it. All right,
All
let's
right.
pay a
Well
bill.
done, gentlemen. Pay a
Yeah,
bill.
We'll pay a bill. Pay a bill.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
This new Bandicoot commercial, I feel like I should be on acid. That's all I can say. For the people on the podcast, they're actually going to have to come into YouTube to see it. But I like the purple. I like the swirls. But I'm looking at this and I'm going, man, even more scotch or acid from the 70s. I'd be like, this is awesome. But I do like it. It's very cool. That's just me.
Enticing, of course.
It's very cool. I thought that was very interesting. And I know you do yourself for Bandicoot, which I think is interesting. But I'm fascinated that they can't get Like if I was graduating university, right? Now, investment banking jobs are not, they're very hard to get. So
Right.
unless you're a lawyer and you're going to go to law, and even that, if I was graduating with a finance degree, I would reach out and be like, all right, I want to get involved. But
I agree.
the issue I had is when he said you have to CP. Listen, you just need to know 2 + 2. Accounting is really not that hard. So it's
Right.
it's very
It's all
logical.
rule based anyway.
Yeah, and right. It's like A does blah blah blah, and whatever you don't know, you're either gonna now you just ask ChatGPT and it'll tell you. But to his point, to be a utility manager, a city manager, or police chief, or fire chief, yes, I agree. You have to kind of live in nowhere, Texas, or nowhere,
The
wherever.
area.
But to be for lack of a better term, the CFO or director of finance for a city,
I think there's opportunity in his program. I
I
think
do
there's a
too. I
lot
think
of
it's very
opportunity
cool.
in TML's program.
I hope he
Well,
gets
I mean,
something.
think of it, I mean, like I said to him, I mean, you graduated, you got a bunch of debt. Most of
Yeah.
you do, most kids do,
Right.
and you're gonna pay, high rent if you're going to, any of the big cities that we know about. This is a
Right.
pretty easy way to you eliminate the debt, and you can actually accumulate some wealth. They're going to pay you relatively well, and you're going to live in. Okay, it's okay. So you don't
Well,
have a
John,
sexy bar with this.
well is a relative term here because I think some of these cities are like they're only going to pay you say between 60 and maybe 80 to 100. He said, I know he said 120, but I think that's part of the issue is I think these kids get out of school and they're like, to your point, they have debt.
Well, yeah, they can't take a job under 100K.
Right, a certain dollar amount, right? They got to pay. So I think that's part of the issue. So to his point, working for 6 or 7 or 8 cities doing 2 + 2, I think is a cool idea. The issue is like if I say, okay, I'll want to do your thing. The city that hasn't done an audit in 4 years, that's 6 months to a year's worth of work before you could go work at any other city because that is literally going to be boom, 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 every single. You're like, that's an event, and then you still have to keep up with what they're doing today to get them audit ready. So that one's an event. The other ones, if they've kind of had people and you can kind of step in and get them from A to Z, if you know anything about accounting, it seems like anybody that has that background could do it. So I think that's fascinating. So I think
Yeah.
it's very cool for the rural renaissance. I'm excited for that.
I think
There you
so.
go.
Yeah, regionalization. All right,
There you
remote
go.
work.
All right. I like it. There. Who knew? There's a company
Who
called
knew?
Bandicoot. Who knew? So there you go. All right. So before we go to Lost Dollar, anything else on the rule before we go to Lost Dollar? Or are we
Oh, I
good?
think we're gonna do the lost dollar.
Johnny, you ready for Lost Dollar? We
Oh
only
yeah,
had 2 weeks to prepare. Yeah, okay, this will be good. So
yeah.
Ever
Okay.
wonder how millions vanish into thin air, or how a single dollar can make all the difference? Join us on Lost and Found, where we dive into the wild world of financial mysteries. From misplaced fortunes to unexpected windfalls, we unravel the stories of people, companies, organizations, and even governments who've lost and found millions. Lost and Found, because every dollar has a story.
I feel like I'm at a saloon back in like the cowboy days with that
Yeah.
music. Like
It's
the
a soap
boom.
opera.
Yeah, I want some girl now sing on my old piano with the fishnet stockings and the garter singing. That's what that music reminded me of. So I have, because David's not here, one came out this morning. The other it's a kudos, and the other one I have is just to me, I'm so happy. So I'm gonna have
All
John
right.
go first.
Yeah, let's
Just because,
go
and I'll
around the
go
horn.
last, and I'll do my 3. My 3 are really quick. So John, what do you have for us today?
All right. So I'm a little. I criticize renewables because it's the putting the horse before the cart.
Right.
And the UK and Europe they just provide with so much wonderful, disasters that and they keep on doing the shit. It's just
Right.
unbelievable. I mean, I don't know what kind of monkeys run these countries, right? But it's just so the UK
Mhm.
is paying wind farms
Yeah.
last year, or in the last 10 months, they've paid out $1.3 billion, 1 million pounds
Right.
to shut down the windmills when it's windy because the grid cannot take in the amount of electricity that they're producing
That's
when
awesome.
it's just crazy, right? So
All right.
when with the burgeoning, here's what they says: burgeoning capacity in blistering weather, which have driven huge growth in output in 24, but the grid can't cope, and so it's forcing the operator of the grid to pay wind farms to turn off, a cost ultimately borne by consumers, right? So it's a
Wow.
yeah. I mean, okay, let's decarbonize, and here's the kicker:
Yeah.
they because they turn off the windmills,
Yeah.
they have to turn on the natural gas plants on, right? Right.
Oh,
So
that's
here
funny.
we are. I mean, it's a comedy of, I don't know, eras of huge. That's because this is. Can you imagine? I mean,
That's funny.
I
That's just
mean,
funny.
and the
You
UK,
couldn't write this.
yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, the UK, I think, has one of the highest electric rates in Europe.
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
They're fighting with Germany because the Germans are a bunch of,
Right.
I don't know,
Nazis.
Austrians. Yeah,
Yeah.
stubborn mules, right?
Right.
With
The best part about this is if I wanted to sit down and write a comedy half hour and I put that in a script and gave it to someone, said, we're going to do a story on how we're going to shut down the windmills when there's too much wind, but turn on the natural gas in the UK. People go, this isn't Benny Hill of the 1980s. There's no way we're doing that.
yeah,
And here it is really actually happening. That's crazy.
yeah, it's just
That's
yeah.
Good
crazy.
find. Good find,
That's a good
John.
find,
Oh, is
John.
that a lost or found?
Is that, well,
At 1.3 billion, year to date. I mean, God, it just
it's a
yeah,
loss.
That's
huge,
a
It's a
big
loss.
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 That's a big
Yeah,
loss.
Big
loss
loss.
for everybody there.
There you
That's
go.
a big loss.
All right.
Well, look, I got one for you that we should all have been following the great Chinese TikTok.
So
Yes.
one of my stories was going to be good. I don't have to do that one.
Oh,
Good.
okay. All right. Well, maybe you've got the different angle on it, but it looks like TikTok is one more step closer to being banned in the United States, and not because it's full of, as they call it, PRC propaganda, People's Republic of China propaganda, but because the PRC is manipulating the content on TikTok
Mhm.
covertly.
Yes.
And that is why it does not have a problem with the First Amendment, and this is really a national security issue. So there you have it, TikTok, one step closer. So you better get those videos off TikTok and get them onto where do you
Yeah.
go? Instagram? I'm not sure.
Instagram. We're
Yeah.
on Instagram, Mike, and then we're on Blue Jean or Blue Style or something. I don't
Blue
know.
Well,
Sky. Blue
Blue
Sky.
Sky. Davis has
TikTok
got
on
us on Blue Sky. So
TikTok in
here's
China
here's what's
doesn't show any of the stupid things that they show on
right.
in the US.
In China,
That's
right? In
right.
China, they show kids how to be lawyers, doctors, teach them math.
Mechanics,
Right. In the US, we
Engineering.
go bookie, bookie, bookie,
engineering.
and do some other yeah, it's really
Yeah.
dumbest thing in the world. The other thing which is interesting, if they sell it to Microsoft, Facebook, Apple, or somebody, they can stay. But if they don't sell it,
Right.
I think they have until I want to say I know it's January is the deadline. I think it's either the 20th or the 19th or the 15th, and that time
January
frame.
25th.
Thank
Yeah.
you. 25th is the deadline. Then there'll be no
Yeah.
more. Like on February 1st, TikTok is gone. So all you TikTok millionaires,
I
Yeah.
hope
Right.
they don't buy it because Microsoft or others think they'll just do the same thing, and they're not to be
oh,
trusted.
Trump's going after them. Trump's going after Google, everybody. I love it. This is going to be such
Yeah.
a
What a drama. Yeah.
this is going to be this. You can't write this stuff. It's the best. Okay.
Yeah.
The two things I want to do. One's really quick. Elon Musk lost his case in the state of Delaware for his $56 billion payout.
Oh,
And because he took it like a man, he's now taking it to the Delaware Supreme Court. So it's like,
wow.
I want my 56 billion because I'm a 5-year-old and you don't deserve it. So, but that's fine because, and its judge said you can't have it because it doesn't make you a fiduciary for your company. So kudos to the judge in Delaware who told Elon his schmeckle is only this big.
But
the next
70% of the shareholders approved that pay package. So
and guess how much Elon owns of the company? 70%. Okay, so he proved himself. So I don't know what he really owns, but I'm just saying. But why? He doesn't. Why? The cars
I
are
know.
crap. Please.
Oh, they
So
stopped the Cybertruck, didn't they? Aren't they
I
stopping?
think, well, the Cybertruck is falling apart. Like literally, some guy on Instagram goes, "Look, it's pasted on or whatever," and he pulled the glue, and it was like it's not good. And the plant's right up the street, so you can go by, and the plant's full of Cybertrucks. And I think they're giving them like it's buy one get six free now. And no one's doing that. So I don't know what to tell you. Anyway, so sorry, Elon. We just don't love you. I don't know what to tell you. Here's the other one, which I thought was very interesting. The new anti-woke ETF is coming out. This is somebody that is a Trump guy, and he is coming out with a fund, and they are going to go after companies that do ESG and anything woke. They are going to go after them. It was created by a guy named Fishback, and they are going to go after all the anti-woke, all the ESG companies, and literally destroy them. Short, whatever they're no more. They're tired of it. And I was like, okay, I'm good with that. Not that you should destroy it. I just think ESG is crap because we've talked about that. And this woke thing has got to go. Yeah, woke is, well, I'm done with it. I mean,
What is
if you're
this phrase,
offended, jump off a bridge.
What do they say? Go woke and go broke. Something
Yes,
like that.
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what I find interesting is that in this last week, Mayor Adams of New York said, I'm going to cooperate with Trump and with mass deportations. I don't care. Cancel me. I might even join the Republican Party. That he's a good politician because he was totally woke and left winger, and now he's like, oh, okay. He's seen the music.
About a month ago, he was indicted, or 2 months ago, right? For a whole bunch of stuff. So now he's hoping for the pardon. And the other thing, which I found interesting, just since we have a few minutes left, is Joe Biden is thinking about pardoning a ton of people in the government before Trump can do whatever he's afraid Trump's going to do, just to get it out of the way. And I'm thinking, mass pardons.
That's crazy.
Seriously, like it's like we're at that point.
Crazy.
I mean, if you're that scared, you're once again, you're in the 40s. You're not in the 2024 area. If you're really worried about, you have to pardon all these people to do all the stuff.
For what?
I know the guy.
For what? Yeah.
Right. What do you? They're just pardoned for anything they've ever done. Then the guy who's going to run, that's up to run the FBI or the Department of Justice. I read an article that his critics are worried that he's going to come after them. And then I read another article. It was either an FT or the Journal. It was saying and Donald Trump is, and Musk are all for free speech. And I'm thinking, a lot of this doesn't really make sense. So somewhere along the line, you guys should all get on the same page. Either we have free speech, we don't have free speech. We've got this, we don't got that. We're going to go after the woke stuff. I'm okay with that. I'm tired of the woke. I'm tired of everybody going, I don't care that you're offended. Jump off a bridge. I'm done with that.
There's a guy called Mark Andreessen who, runs
he's going to help. Whatchamacallit? He's going to help run the thing now.
I find it interesting that a guy who was deep, 100% in with the Democrats, loved them, promoted them, gave them freaking money, comes up now. All of a sudden, he says, the Biden administration and Obama, they censored us, they debanked us and shut. And why the fuck weren't you talking about this when it was happening? Yeah, right. Yeah, because you don't.
That's a politician.
Another opportunist.
That's a politician.
Another opportunist. I'm like, Jesus, unbelievable.
Did you hear? And the latest one that came out today, this was on Bloomberg. They did an audit finally. Elon Musk, I think, gave the Trump administration or his campaign, and I'm okay with it's his money, $230 million. Not the 100 plus, but it was 230 or 250 million that Elon gave to the Trump campaign. And once again, kudos to them. But like to your point about Andreessen, it's like, if all this terrible stuff was going on, why didn't you say anything? And they're all opportunists. They're all sucking up. I read the article today where he's going to help Elon find people to shake up the government. And I'm like, really? Because you got lucky with one thing. That makes you now the expert.
Or maybe they're noticing the tide has turned in terms of the population and the popular vote.
I think he should focus on his own state because California is a shit show. It really
That's
is.
True.
They suck you dry with every tax, with regulations up the wazoo. I mean, it's just not a good place.
Trump wants to get rid of it. His comment when we were off last week, I liked when he said to the BRIC countries, if you screw with the dollar, that's it. We're going to come after you even harder. And so the rhetoric from China and Russia and India died down a little bit. But I'm
Oh,
still thinking, like he was like, you're going to screw with our dollar. We're going to, and I'm thinking, this is interesting. So I give him credit for stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is an interesting. It's like, I don't know how do I put it. I'm almost thinking I'm at the theater. And I'm like, we're in it's almost like we're not even hit the first act yet. What I'm watching is I'm like, people are in front of me talking about like they've seen the show and they're telling me about it. And the first act is going to be, 19th or 20th, whenever he gets inaugurated. Then I'm like, that's the first act. And then I'm waiting for the second, the intermission, and then the third.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of like right now, it's like the building to this first act. I'm like, this is going to be a really good show. Like, like it's going to just, the clashes, the way it's just like, you couldn't write this.
Well,
If
let's hope it's
somebody,
not all bluster and there's action.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Right.
yeah, I think
You
this
know,
time around, the things that I've been reading, and whether it's on Bloomberg, The Economist, FT, Wall Street, whoever, the things that they're all saying is the people that know him are saying he learned from his mistakes the first time, like what he could and couldn't do. And so if you see who he's putting around him or trying to put around him now, he's trying to put people around him that were just going to be like, yes, whatever you say type of thing. Before it was people that say, no, you really can't do that. We have a constitution. And he would get mad. And I think a lot of the people he's putting around him now, and I don't know them, I haven't spoken to them, I'm just what I'm reading.
We'll welcome them on the show.
Yeah, anybody's always welcome to come on and tell us.
Any nominee is welcome to the show.
That's right. Please, or Matt Gates, just for fun. So, but the interesting part of it is they're saying he's putting all these people around that are more yes people. And then some of them have dropped out. Some of them have just,
Right.
I think people have spoken to them and go, listen, they're going to bring all this up. Do you really want this to be your dirty laundry, like a Matt Gates? And I think Matt was smart to drop out. But then, Trump could be stupid like a fox and be like, I'm going to nominate Matt Gates, but who I really want is the girl from Florida anyway. So I'll have everybody go, oh my God, Matt Gates, Matt Gates. So it's sort of, oh, her. Okay. Like John said, when we brought her up, John was like, oh, she's good. Okay. So all of a sudden it was like, oh, okay, more better. So I'm not sure yet of the game or the gamemanship, but I find it interesting. Like I said, it's an interesting prelogue to the first act. And to John's point, yes, I'm hoping a lot of it's not bluster and they really do stuff, but I'm hoping it's not the elite that are doing it, because that is just going to leave 90% of the country in a very bad way. And they really are going to have to get normal people in.
Even worse than the past 4 years. Yeah.
Even past anything.
Or past,
right, because you have these guys that don't have a concept of a dollar anymore. So they're going to be like, well, we don't need to pay for that.
Well, they don't.
Well,
yeah,
you're the guy who only makes
it's like that article from
a year.
That article from 2014 that said the class war is not a war; it's already won.
Yeah,
it's already done.
And we keep talking kind of tongue in cheek about a civil war, and people are going to get upset. And my condolences to the gentleman from healthcare who got murdered a few days ago in New York City. But this is starting to get to that point where people are going to be like, oh, you don't want to help me, I'll take care of it myself. And that's where that's the mentality we're starting to get to. And that's where I kept saying, let's make sure we help everybody. Whether you have no money in the bank or you have $1 trillion in the bank, we help everybody, because what you don't want is this to start happening.
Social breakdown. Yeah.
Right. Well, and that's a very bad thing. So what do I know?
This is because, when you start with the idiotic idea that we're going to decriminalize, certain things because there's too many people in jail, and you're not going to prosecute, and we're going to do leniency, and we're going to do all of these programs and then people are like, oh, I can do shit and nobody's going to, there's no consequence. Right. Well, this is what you get, right? This is the second order effects of all these stupid ideas. And, people are like, oh, now we shouldn't have voted for these people. Okay. And now we're voting back. Right. Yeah. Now we have to reverse it. Yeah. And
I have a question though, based on what you just said. Nothing against Mr. Trump. He's, his little issue in New York, he's got 34 counts, whatever. It kind of makes if you look at the justice system, then it's kind of like, oh, really? So the guy, now, murder's wrong, full stop. So the guy who did what he did, it's kind of like, is he just kind of like, well, the president can get away with shit, I can get away with shit. I mean, is that kind of the mentality we're going to start having now in our country? Or is it just sort of a different mentality where the little guy is just getting tired of everything and they're just going to start now like, okay, we'll just take it out on the rich, which is what I had said a couple months ago. Is like, let's not get to that point. So I'm hoping it's a one-off and we don't get to that point.
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. My condolences to him and his family, but it's, and I've read some of the reports on it and just like, not a good situation at all.
Yeah.
No.
So no, not a good thing.
Well, on that note,
Yes.
on that
on
happy
that
note,
note, we're
everybody.
back to our regular programming next week.
Yeah, the next week we'll be on at 8:30 in the morning live on Friday.
That's
if you'd like to
right.
be a guest on the show and you're one of Mr. Trump's nominees, please come on. We'd love to hear from you, and you can tell us absolutely everything we don't know, and we know that. David will be back next week. If you want, you'll be on the podcast. The rebroadcast is tomorrow. Don't forget to subscribe and like. And I think other than that, that's it, boys. We're all good. Don't forget to go to the merch store. You can buy beautiful Lost Dollar Business Club stuff for your loved ones. Not that they'll want it, but you could. So,
All right.
all right, boys. Have a good week. We'll see everybody
Okay.
later. Have a good holiday, everybody. Cheers.